onto the borders. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to look at here is the designs on the mykimberbell.com website. The designs that I've chosen is going to be the fireworks. I think that would be great to have on the borders. It will kind of match with the center blocks, but it's going to blend in. I'm going to use a bright red, kind of a blender fabric, which is going to be so pretty. And then I'm going to use that same variegated thread that we used on the blue blocks. I'm going to use that same thread. So it's just going to blend in, yet give a little bit of a pop, but not too much because the thread is red, white, and blue, and it's going to be on a red fabric. So with that in mind, I've pulled up the fireworks quilting designs that we originally used for the blocks. And I'm looking at a 4-inch border. So I've chosen these 4-inch designs. And knowing that the height of the wall hanging from top to bottom, remember we measured, was 37 inches. So we're going to go to 38 to allow a little bit extra and a little bit for seam allowance. So to get to 38, I think it would be best to do 3 of the 10s. That would give me 30, and 1 of the 8. That gives me exactly 38. So because this design is nice and long and full, it's really not going to matter how you do it. You could do 2 10s, an 8, and a 10, or just do 3 10s. So I'm going to do a 10, and then another 10, and then another 10, and then an 8. So there's going to be 4 hoopings for this border, whereas we had 3 hoopings for the sashing. This one's going to be 4 hoopings. So I think it's going to look great. So you're really not even going to notice where these start and stop. So I'm going to do 3 of the 10s in a row, and then I'll do an 8. And that'll be just for the left side. And then we'll do another one for the right side. So what we're going to do is you're going to come down here. This is, by the way, this is the instructions that come with the quilting designs on the mykimberbell.com. You're going to come down to this page on the instruction, and you're going to ignore this part. This is for the applique blocks. What you want to do is you want to come down here to the border blocks and piece blocks. And I've highlighted here, you want to focus on the first design, which is going to be the file name 4x10. Again, I've chosen to do a 4-inch border. If you want to do a 2-inch, you can. Or if you want to do a 6-inch, you can do that too. It's your choice. I just happen, for this instance, I'm going to pick a 4-inch border. The finished size is going to be 4x10. So that'll give me perfect. 10 times 3 is 30, plus the 8-inch we're going to do is 38. So the first thing we need to do is we need to cut some batting to go for these borders. So they're recommending the batting size be 5 inches by 11 inches. And I like that because you'll be able to nicely lay it down and cover the stitch lines where it shows you where to place it. So we're going to cut 5 by 11. Now for the left side, you're going to need 3 of these 10-inch long, and the right side you're going to need another 3. So just to do the borders for the left and the right, you're going to need 6 of these pieces. So I want you to cut 6 pieces of the 5 by 11 inch batting. Okay, 6 pieces. Now when it comes to the fabric, remember what we did with the sashing? We cut a strip by the width of the fabric. So I want you to ignore where it says cut size 10.5 inches here. I want you to cut this whole width of the fabric, just like we did for before. But they're recommending only a 4.5 inch strip. Okay, remember on the sashings, we did a 2.5 inch. I don't think 4.5 is quite big enough. That's kind of pushing it because you're going to end up with 4-inch finished size and that's 1/4 inch on each side for seam allowance, that's no wiggle room at all if you lay it down just slightly off kilter. So I'm recommending that we cut the strips to be a 5-inch strip by the width of the fabric. So you fold your fabric in half like you get it off the bolt, and you cut a 5-inch strip the whole way. You'll have a little bit left over, not much. For the vertical borders, when we get to the horizontal, you'll have a little bit more left over, but that's okay. I prefer having the width of fabric. It's easy to cut, and whatever's left over you can use for your stash. So it's not going to be that much. So 6 pieces of your 5 by 11 inch batting is what you need. And I am recommending cutting this to be a 5-inch strip by the width of fabric for your chosen fabric border. So in my instance, I'm going to do a red blender fabric. So I'm going to cut 5-inch wide strips by the width of the fabric. All right, now how many do you need of those strips? You're going to need 1 strip for the left, 1 strip for the right, and as long as we're doing it, let's do 1 strip for the bottom and 1 strip for the top. So you need a total of 4 of these strips. So again, cut 6 pieces of batting, 5-inch by 11 inches, 6 pieces. So as long as we're here, let's go ahead and cut the batting as well for the 8-inch long border, because we're going to need that on the 4th hooping. So that batting is just 5 inches by 9 inches, and you will need 2 of those. Okay, so go ahead, and right after you cut your 5 by 11, your 6 pieces, go ahead and cut 2 that are 5 inches long by 9 inches long, and then go ahead and cut 4 strips that are 5 inches long by the width of the fabric. That way you'll be prepared when we get to the horizontal borders, top and bottom. Okay, so go ahead and cut your batting and cut your strips. Now, when you're done cutting the strips, go ahead and press them out, steam out the little crease there in your fabric, and then go ahead and cut your Palon fusible and do the same thing to the back like we did with the sashings. You want to fuse that Palon to the back of your strips. Go ahead and fuse it to all 4 strips, and we'll need 2 now, and we'll need 2 for later. And I'll meet you back at the machine. Are we excited to start stitching out these borders? This is going to be fun, and you realize that we are so close to having this project done. Just so exciting. Okay, so on my machine, I have taken my large hoop, my 9.5 by 14, and I've placed a piece of polynomial mesh stabilizer in it. And you're probably asking, why is she using the large hoop? Well, these border pieces are 4 inches wide when they're stitched, but the embroidery field is 4.5 inches wide each in order to allow for the seam allowances. So that will give me 9 inches across, because I want to do just like we did the sashings. I want to do 2 at one time. So this is just going to fit. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to take you to the screen, and I want to show you what I mean by loading this design. Then you'll understand once you see it. So let's click Embroidery. Go to your flash drive, go to Main Street, and then this one is Fireworks. The Patriotic was the kind of squirrely with the stars. So this one I'm going to use the Fireworks, which is the same that we did for the background of the blocks. So now I'm looking through here, and I'm looking for this one. This is a 4 by 10. This is the one that we're going to start with, and we're going to do the 3 hoopings in the 10. Later we'll switch to the 8, but right now we're going to do the 10. Start with that. We're going to bring it in, click Set. Now we're going to move it. So we're going to click Edit, and we're going to click Move. And now I'm going to move it to the left. And now what I want you to see is, see this inner border? Okay, we're actually going to overlap that. We're going to go to the left. The hoop itself is this outer border. So I need to push it outside what you think would be this section here, all the way over to the left. And you'll see here in a second. So let's hold it down. And let's move it all the way over. And let's see. A little bit of a cushion there. And I think the second one will fit nicely over here. So let's click OK. Now we're going to click Add. And we're going to bring in a second one of the 10-inch. So go to Main Street, Fireworks. There's the 10-inch. It's going to bring it in dead center. And we're going to edit. And I'm going to move it over to the right. So let's hold it down on the right button and move it over. See, there's not a whole lot of room. We have a little bit more room over here. So how to get back to this design, to move this one over just another smidge, just click on that left design. See how it kind of moved it off kilter? I can move it with my pen and line it back up, and then just move it over to the left just a smidge, or back. Well, I think we got more in the center. Let's move it back over to the right. So we have a little bit on the right, a little bit in the center, and a little bit on the left. So click OK. Now everything looks good. Click Embroidery. And the machine accepted it. Okay, knowing that it knows what hoop is in the machine, it said, okay, this is going to fit. We're good. We've got the largest hoop in, and we've gone all the way over as far as we can go. This will allow you to do 2 of these 4-inch designs, 4-inch wide, in one hooping. So that's when I said we're going to do 3 hoopings. We're going to stitch this out. Then we're going to hoop again, more stabilizer. We're going to stitch this out again. Hoop, more stabilizer, stitch this out again. We won't change this design until the 4th hooping, when we're going to change it to the 8-inch design. So we're going to do 3 of these back to back to back. I'm going to walk you through the first one, and then we'll fast forward through number 2 and 3. All right, so let's get back to the machine and get started. All right, let's do this. Okay, I have white thread in the top of my machine. Oh, you know what we forgot to do? Something very important. Let's go back to the screen. We forgot to change the color thread sequence. See, it's doing 1, 2, 3, and it's switching. We need to change this. So edit, go to those 3 little spools of thread, and now you can see behind it's changed it. There we go. Almost forgot to do it when I was ready to hit the go button. I was like, wait a minute, I'm not doing it in the color order sequence. So we got the blue first, then that, then that. Okay, we're good. So now it's going to go left, right, left, right, left, right. So now we're ready. All right, so I got white thread in the top of my machine. So it will stitch out the left first placement line and then the right. So let's get this ball rolling. So now let's get your batting out. Let's get out the one of the 6 pieces that you did that are 11 inches long, the longer ones. And make sure that we're going to cover that. We actually are, and I've cut mine a little bit bigger. So I'm going to move mine and let it hang over here so that I don't have to do a trim in the middle of the 2. And where's the top? All right, move it up just a smidge. Okay, we look good. Let's tack this down, and remember, just like the sashings, you're going to have to stop it when it moves over here so we can place the second one. Okay, so foot down, and away we go. let's take this over to the table and let's trim away the excess batting. Okay, that looks good. Now let's stitch out the placement line for the fabric. Still white thread in the top of your machine. Okay, so now I want you to grab a piece of your large 5-inch wide border fabric that we went ahead, pressed, and we fused out. And so I'm going to let this salvage be at the top, and I'm going to make sure it's a 1/2 inch above where the batting is. And I'm going to line it up to make sure that it's actually over that line. Now this design appears to be a little bit different. They're not just going to tack down the sides. It looks like they're going to go around the whole thing. So we want to make sure that we're on, or actually over on all sides. Okay. Now I want to put red thread in the top of the machine because I want it to match the fabric. So whatever color of fabric you're using for this step, go ahead and put that same matching colored thread in the top of your machine. Okay, now I just put the red thread on the top of the machine. Now we're going to do the tape trick, just like we did before, because I got 1/2 inch over. There we go. I'm going to tape that down, and then I want to do it again as well on the bottom here, just to hold it in place. All right, now we're ready to tack this down. Remember, when it stops tacking this down and moves over here, stop the machine so we can work on the one on the right. Okay, actually I'm going to move this over just a smidge toward the left. Just a smidge there, because I didn't want it that far over on the right side. Ready? Let's do this. Okay, now what we have to do is I have to come in and I have to trim. I'm going to take this to the table and I'm just going to trim a little bit, not a lot, like maybe 1/8 of an inch off of here, just because it's going to overlap into the quilting on this first one. And that reason that is because this design is so wide, we couldn't really push it any more off to the sides. So I'm just going to trim this up just a little bit, about 1/8 of an inch, just so that the fabric is on the right side of this stitch line, then it won't get in that quilting. Okay, let's trim that up. Okay, so I've trimmed this up a little bit, and don't worry too much about whether it's neat or anything, because we're going to trim this up when we're done, and this part is going to go in the seam allowance anyway. So we have a little bit of wiggle room. Whoops, that's why I had you do a little bit extra wide on the fabric, so that we have the ability to make adjustments as we need to. So this will be in the seam allowance. We're good. Okay, and this thread that's rolling around over here, this is that awesome variegated thread that we used on the blue block, and I am excited. I can't wait to see how it's going to look against this red. I think it's going to look really awesome. So let's put the variegated thread in the top of the machine and let's stitch out this design. Okay, here we go, stitching out the fireworks with the variegated thread. Foot down and begin. Isn't this pretty? It even came out better than what I had hoped. It's a real subtle change, but it doesn't pop, but it doesn't like be muted either. It's a very nice movement. You look up close and you see the pretty color of the thread, but far away it kind of blends in like the blender portions of the fabric. But up close, it just gives that awesome movement. I love it. I really love it. It came out awesome. All right. So now let us take this out of the hoop. Here we go. Okay. So now we're going to just trim up the excess of the stabilizer. Lost my other piece of tape. That's okay. All right. So how you guys feeling? You loving this so far? I am. I hope you are too. Let me tell you a little bit about these borders. The process that we're going to do next is a little bit different than what we did for the sashings. Kimberbell has digitized these borders differently than they did the sashings. The sashings were one continuous strip of fabric. Okay, so like where we had here, we did a hooping, we lined up the batting, we did another hooping, etc. We're not going to be doing that with this. These are actually going to be treated as separate blocks and sewn together. I still had you do the width of fabric strips because to me it is a much more efficient way of doing these blocks because you don't waste fabric in between. A lot of times they tell you to cut it a certain length and you're going to waste extra fabric, but I find if I just cut a strip like I taught you in the beginning of this video series, then you tend not to waste fabric, and then the scrap you have left over is more of a usable scrap if you have any left over versus small little pieces that you may only be able to use for applique. So I like to do the width of fabric strips when we're doing this. Okay, just saves fabric, and you know me, I don't like to waste supplies. So these are going to be blocks that are going to be sewn together, not a continuous strip hooping project like the sashings. So this is actually going to be easier in a couple ways because we don't have to deal with lining the batting up and making sure the fabric's lined up. We're just going to be stitching blocks and sewing them together. So on that note, okay, we need to have these blocks be 10.5 inches long. Okay, it's 10-inch stitched plus a 1/4 inch on each side for the seam allowance. And if you look here, let me get this over. If we line up this red thread, the stitch line at the bottom of the block, if you line that up with the 0 mark on your ruler and you come over, this stitch line, the red line, hits right at 10.5 inches. So the easy thing with these blocks is when we trim them up, we're going to trim them up to just outside that stitch line. So it's really easy. So first thing I want to do is I want to separate these two blocks. I'm going to go right down the middle between the two fabrics. And don't worry if you don't get it neat because we're going to be trimming it up on that side as well. So just get them separated there. That's okay. Put one aside. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to trim up this edge. So I'm going to line the thread up here. I'm going to grab my ruler that got hidden there. Line that up, and then I'm going to go right for 10.5 inch. 10.5 inches. Okay, double check. That's on the stitch line, a little bit smidgy. There we go. Whoops, it moved. Okay, that is lined up. Line up here, 10.5 inches. Use a rotary cutter and trim that off. Okay, gonna do the same thing. Turn this around. 10.5 inches. And if you see, when you cut this at 10.5, it is just a hair over that thread line, which is exactly where we want to be. Okay? It's exactly where we want to be. I was right on it there. We'll trim that off. And just on the outside of it there. Don't worry, because even that is going to be in the seam allowance. But that gives you a cutting line, so to speak. So we're going to do the same thing for this side. So this side, I'm going to measure, go over here, it's a little easier to see if you can see it here. We want this width to be 4.5 inches. So if I line up the stitch mark on this side and the stitch mark on that side, we're at 4.5 inches. So I'm going to move this over here just so it's a little easier to cut. I'm going to line up the threads. So I'm at 6 inches, mark here. So I want to go to 10.5, lay it down, double check, 10.5, and trim it up. Again, you want it 4.5 inches wide. Turn it around, line that right up on the 6 inches and come right down 10.5 and trim that up. There we go. So we have a beautiful block. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. So let's do the same thing with this one. All right. So again, this has to be 10.5 inches. Line her up. Ten and a half inches. Double check. And trim it off. Now this is actually easier than doing the sashing. So this will actually come together very nicely. Okay, and 10.5. Awesome. All right, so you know the last thing we got to do, we got to make this 4.5. So I line that up, 6, line that up on 10.5. All right. Give my extra here. And one more cut. And we have 2 completed blocks. 4.5. Okay, double check it and trim it up. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so now we have 2 blocks. Isn't that amazing? Now, what we're going to do is you're going to go to the machine and you're going to do this step over and over again. Okay, what we need for the vertical borders, the borders on the sides, is, remember we talked about we need 3 of these, a 10, a 10, a 10, and then we're going to do an 8 at the bottom. So I need you to do 2 more hoopings with this exact combination. Okay, so you need a total of 6 of these blocks. 1, 2, 3 times 2 is 6. And then the bottom one will be 8. Don't worry about that one for now. Just focus on doing 2 more hoopings for this. Now, what I've also done at the same time is realize that our horizontal borders are going to also include 10 inches. If I measure this out, this is 24 to the seam, 25, 26 inches. Okay, so I want to measure one more time. So 24 to there, 25, and 26 with a little bit left over. So I need to have this border equal 26 inches. That combination is going to be a 10, a 6, and a 10. 2 10s is 20, and a 6 in the middle is 26. So with that in mind, we're going to do the same thing with these borders. I need a 10 and a 10, and then we'll have a 6 in the middle. You can just kind of see that there. It's off to the edge. All right. So we need 2 blocks down here, and I need 2 more blocks for the top. So we need 4 more of this exact same size block to do the horizontal borders. Don't worry about the 6 for now. Just like I said, don't worry about the 8 for the other. So what I want you to do, not to get you confused, the vertical blocks up and down, you need to do 2 more hoopings. But then for the horizontal blocks, I want you to do 2 more hoopings. So grand total is 4 more hoopings. Again, we're going to have a 10, a 10, and a 10. So that's 2 hoopings there. And then we need 2 for the bottom, 3 hoopings, and 2 for the top is 4 hoopings. So ultimately, I need you to make 10 of these blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we need 10 of these. You have 2. That means you need 8 more of these blocks, which equals 4 more hoopings. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? So we need a total of 10 of these blocks. So we've got 2. You do 4 more hoopings of 2 each. So you don't need to change the embroidery machine at all. It's set up to do these 2 10 inches. So just go to town and do what we just did 4 more times. Okay, again, we just need a total of 10 of these blocks, okay? All right, I hope you guys got it. I hope I didn't confuse you too much, but this will save you a step of having to switch the machine back and forth between different size blocks. We're just going to create all the 10-inch blocks at once. Then we'll come back and I'll walk you through how to change the machine to do the 8-inch blocks, and then again how to change the machine for the 6-inch. So right now, just focus on 10 of these blocks, 10 inches long. All right, I'll meet you right back here. All right, look what we just did. All right, so now you should have 10 blocks, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So these are all ready to go. We're going to repeat the same process you just did for these 10 blocks. We're going to go back to the machine and we're going to do one hooping of 8-inch long blocks. So let's go to the machine and I'll show you how to change the computer to the new design. Okay, so we're back at the machine and now we've done all the 10-inch blocks that we need to do. So it says finished embroidering. We're going to click OK. And now we're going to go to the home button because we are done with this design. We don't need it anymore. OK to delete, select OK. So now we're going to go back into the embroidery module, go back to the flash drive, go back to Main Street, and go back to the fireworks. Now this time we are going for the 4 by 8 inch. Okay, we need to make 2 blocks that are this size. That's only one hooping the way we're going to do it here. So let's click on the 8-inch. I'm going to click Set. And we're going to click Edit. And we're going to move it all the way over to the left. Same thing that we did for the 10-inch blocks. Going to move it all the way over, leaving just a little bit on the side. Click OK. Now we're going to add the second design. Click Add. Go back to your flash drive. Back to Main Street. Fireworks. And we're going to select the 4 by 8 inch again. And click Set. All right, now we got to move this because it's on top of each other. So we're going to Edit. We're going to move. And we're going to move it over to the right. Hold it down, or you can do individual clicks. And right about there. So we have a little bit on the sides. So you can actually get a little closer than we did on the 10. That's fine. And then distance in the middle. That works as long as you have a little bit of space on each side. Click OK. And click Embroidery. Now one more thing, because our colors are not in the order we want. Click Edit. Go for the 3 spools. It changes it. You can just barely see it there. Click Edit. And now the colors are together. So it'll go left, then right, then left, then right, then left, then right. See, you guys have got this. You're becoming more and more comfortable with adding 2 designs on the machine and sorting the colors in order to make it easier for you. So go ahead and stitch these out. You only want 2 blocks of this. So it's 1 hooping with these 2 blocks in it. Then I'll take it over to the table and I'll show you how to trim it out. So go ahead and stitch out these 2 8-inch designs. You did it! These are really nice 8-inch blocks. This is just coming together so well. Aren't you proud of yourself? I am proud of you guys. You guys have come so far and done so well on this project. It's so exciting. All right, so out of the hoop it goes. You know what to do. We're going to turn this up and cut away just the excess stabilizer first. And you notice that you have just enough fabric too. Yeah, this is working out very nicely. And it's going to look so cute on your wall. I can't wait to see pictures. Once we get this all done, I would love for you guys to send me pictures. I will put my email address at the very end of the video so that you can send me pictures. I would love to see these, because this is just the cutest project. So I'm just cutting down the middle, just separating the two. Doesn't have to be fancy, because again, we're going to trim it up. Okay, so now let's trim it up. Okay, so these are 8" by 4" stitched. So we're going to trim them to, let's get this down here, a little easier to see. We're going to trim it to 8.5 inches. Same technique as we did the 10, just outside this red stitch line, but these need to be 8.5 inches long. Okay. 8.5 inches long. So line up that red stitch line with the 0, and then line this up right at 8.5 and trim it up. Same technique as we did to the 10" blocks, but these are 8.5. So I can actually do that. And if I have it on the line of 3, then I'm going to go to 11.5 and trim that up. Let's do the same thing over here. Put it at 3, and I'm going to go to 11.5 right there. Trim it up. Same thing. Hold it. Go to 11.5 and trim it up. Nice. Okay. And I want you to do the same thing to the sides. We want this to be your 4.5 inches. Don't have to trim much on this one. Okay, turn this around. So these will always be 4.5 inches wide. These are consistently the same width. It's just some of them are 10.5 inches. Some are 8.5 inches long. So there you have 4.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So that one's done. And then let's trim this one up like that. Isn't this exciting how close we're getting? I love it. Love it, just love it. All right, and trim it up. Nice. Okay, so now we have 2 of these blocks that are 8.5 inches long. See, 8.5 inches by 4.5 inches. You have 2 of these. That's all you need. Now I need you to follow me to the machine. We're going to change the design up to the 6" blocks, and you only need to make 2 of those blocks as well. So 1 hooping with 2 blocks in it, and then this part will be done, and we got 1 part left after that. So let's go to the machine and do the 6" designs. So now we're done stitching out these 8" designs, and we're ready to go to the 6". You only got 1 more hooping to do, and it's going to be the 6" designs. So we're going to click Home. It says OK, delete. We click OK. Go back to Embroidery. We're going to go to the flash drive and Main Street and the fireworks. And now we're looking for the 4" by 6" design. Click on that. Click Set. Okay, now we're going to edit. We're going to move it. And we're going to move it over to the left, all the way over. That looks good. Click OK. Now we're going to add the 2nd design. Click Add. Go back to the flash drive. Main Street. Fireworks. Go again for the 4 by 6". Click Set. And now we're going to move it. So we click Edit and Move. And we're going to move it all the way over to the right, leaving just a little bit of room. That looks good. Click OK. Click Embroidery. And now we're going to change the colors. So click Edit and your 3 spools and Edit again. And now your colors are in sequence. Sound good, huh? You got this. Okay, now stitch this out. And when you're done, I'll meet you over at the table and we'll trim this up to size. Okay, now we're going to do the same trim up procedure for these little 6-inch blocks. Aren't they cute? Just going to trim away the excess stabilizer. And you guys realize we are almost done with borders. We have one more step to do. So we're almost done. So exciting. I know I say that a lot, but it is. To get this far on a project and have done so much and learned so much, it's just amazing. I can't wait to see what we have at the end of it. Okay, so let's separate these 2 blocks. Again, right down the middle. Okay, that's good. Okay, now we're going to trim these little guys up. They're so cute. And yes, you guessed right. These are going to be 6.5 inches long. 6.5. So if I landed on the 6, take that red stitch line, and I'm going to go to 12.5. Right like that. Trim it up. Same thing, flip it around. Land it on the 6. Hold it. Gonna go to 12.5. Always use that red stitch line as your guide. Okay, let's do the same thing for this one. I tend to like to do the multiple blocks the same cut at the same time, because in my head I only have to think 6.5, 6.5. So it helps, you know, decrease the amount of mistakes you might make if your brain is just focusing on the same thing. So if I had a pile of 10 of these blocks, I would sit there and just do the same measurement all the way across the board, and then I don't have to think too much, and it minimizes the amount of mistakes I make. So now we're going to have to go 4.5 inches wide. So if I'm landed on 6, I'm going to go to 10.5. Okay, oops. And trim this up. Same thing. And also alternate on your cutting mat as well. So 8 to 12.5. And the reason that is because then you're not digging a line in your cutting mat in the same spot. So it helps prolong the life of your cutting mat. Is if you kind of, you know, if you are supposed to do the same thing on 12 inches all the time, I would get a deep rut in that. So this way it kind of spreads it out a little bit. You got to do a little bit of math, but like 7 goes to 11.5. But it will help your mat last longer if you're spreading the cuts out. They say they're self-healing, but they can only self-heal so much. And then eventually they will wear out. So then 8 goes to 12.5. Very little trim on that side. Yay! All right. So now we have these cute, adorable 6-inch long blocks. And that's all you need is just 2 of those. Okay. So we're almost done. So now I'm going to take you to the computer for a second, and I want to show you the last piece that we have to stitch out on the embroidery machine. Okay, here is the chart of our wall hanging, and the last piece that we're going to be working on are the cornerstones. If you remember earlier, I had like this additional on these 2. Well, I decided I didn't really like the look of how short that was, and I think the cornerstones would look a little bit cleaner. So I changed it up, and so now we're just going to have a cornerstone in each of the 4 corners. And this is going to work out really well because on the Kimberbell designs that we have, they have a 4-inch square block, and we're doing a 4-inch border on both sides. So a cornerstone of a 4-inch is going to be absolutely perfect to fit into our design. So let me pull up the Kimberbell chart, and I'm going to walk you through the batting and the fabric that we need to cut to do this last step of 4 cornerstones. So back on the Kimberbell instructions for our quilting designs, you can see that they have here the 4 by 4 inch and the fireworks. So that's the one that we're going to use. If you scroll down to the next page and you go down to the border blocks and piece blocks, we are looking at the 4 by 4 file name. Okay, there we go. The finished size is going to be a 4 by 4. The batting that we need to cut is a 5-inch by 5-inch. Okay, we are going to need 4 pieces of the 5 by 5 inch. So cut 4 pieces of your batting, 5-inch by 5-inch. Now the cut size, they again say 4.5 by 4.5. But you notice that when we cut 5-inch strips for the last section of borders, we didn't really have that much extra on the edges, but it gave us a nice wiggle room. So I'm going to recommend the same thing here. So for the fabric that we're going to cut, I want you to also cut them like the batting, 5 inches by 5 inches. So cut your batting 5 by 5 and cut fabric 5 by 5. Now, for your fabric choices for the cornerstones, wouldn't it be neat to choose a offsetting color? You can do solid red if you like, and it would blend in. But what if you did a blue? What if you did a white? Okay, I think I'm going to do the blue, and I'm going to choose the same blue kind of blender fabric that I used for the background of the blocks. I think that's going to tie in the blue of the center and pull it into the border. So we're truly going to have red, white, and blue. We're going to have red in the border, a little bit of blue, and then of course we have the white sashings, and then we go toward the center and we have the blue blocks again. So I'm going to do these 4 cornerstones with a blue fabric that matches the center. I think that's going to be really fun. But do whatever strikes your fancy. Whatever fabric color calls to you for these cornerstones, make it yours and make it unique. So again, we're going to cut 4 pieces of batting, 5 by 5, and we're going to cut 4 pieces of the fabric of your choice for the cornerstones, also 5-inch by 5-inch. And don't forget, we need to put your Paylon fusible on the back of the fabric. So also cut pieces of that, iron your fabric out, and fuse that Paylon to the back side of these fabric pieces to support the embroidery. So go ahead and do that. Hoop another piece of your poly no-show mesh stabilizer and your large hoop, and I'll meet you at the machine and I'll walk you through how to add these designs. Okay, now we're back at the machine and we're going to load those cornerstone blocks. So it says it's finished. Let's click OK. And we're going to click the home button and we're going to clear this out. OK to delete. Say OK. Go back to the embroidery. You're getting good at this now. Go to the flash drive. Go to Main Street. And the fireworks. And now we're looking for the 4-inch by 4-inch block. That's going to be our cornerstones. So we select that. Look how tiny and cute it is. All right, going to click Set. Now we're going to click Edit. And now I want to move it. But in this case, we're going to put 4 of these blocks in one hooping. Not just 2. We're going to do 4. We're going to do it all at once. So I want to move this all the way to the left, and then I also want to move it down. So I can actually use this diagonal button and go down, and then also go down to the bottom. That's more than enough. We don't need that much space in between, but that's kind of cool. So let's go up a little bit more. All right, so now let's click OK. Now we're going to add another design. Flash drive, Main Street, fireworks. We want to bring in another 4x4 design. Click Set. I'm going to click Edit, and now we're going to move it, and now I want to go to the bottom right. So I use the diagonal button and then go down. A few more. That looks good. Click OK. Then we're going to add the third design. You got this. Main Street, fireworks, 4x4 design. Bring it in, click Set. Now we're going to add it and we're going to move it. And I want to move it up, so I'm going to go to the left diagonal. A little bit more. And then I'm going to go up. And that looks good. So let's click OK. And now we're going to add the fourth design. Flash drive, Main Street, fireworks, and 4x4. See how easy this is? Click Set. And we're going to click Edit. And we're going to move it. And we're going to move it in the upper right corner. There we go. A couple more. How about that? And click OK. And click Embroidery. And this is very important. Edit, little spools with red, and then Edit. And now look, it has the first step for all 4 and the second step for all 4. How about that? See, it's the same technique that you did earlier where you added 2 designs, but now you added 4 of the cornerstone pieces on here. And we're going to stitch it out the exact same way. It's just going to go through 4 steps. So you'll have 4 placement stitches for the batting. You'll place the batting down 4 times, exactly the same as you've been doing, but now it's doing all 4 at the same time. So in one hooping, you're going to do all 4 cornerstones. This is so much fun. Okay, so go ahead and stitch this out just like you've done the other blocks, and take it over to the table when you're done, and we'll measure these and square these up. Okay, aren't those pretty? Little blue cornerstone blocks. You guys did it. All right, let's take this out of the hoop. You know this routine well. You've done it several times now, right? Right. Okay, so I just want to trim the excess of the stabilizer away from these blocks, so it'll make it a little bit easier to trim these up. So how'd you guys feel about that? Doing your first design, probably the first for many of you, where you did 4 in one hoop. That is the amazing thing with these modern technology machines, that you can do multiple designs as long as your hoop can accommodate it. Now, if you don't have the ability to do multiples in a hoop, that's okay too. These go pretty quick, so you can just do multiple hoopings with a 5x7 hoop. This is too big for the 4-inch because it's a 4.5-inch design, but that's okay. I mean, we can adapt to do it, but if you have the opportunity to have one of these, I call them a little bit more computerized machine, it's a really handy little feature there to be able to put multiple designs in there. You save on stabilizer, and to me you save time because you're literally doing the same thing 4 times. I love it. Okay, let's separate this one. This one I had to overlap a little bit, but I thought that the 5-inch size was much easier to put down because you had room. Can you imagine if this was a 1/2 inch smaller? You would literally be trying to tack that edge down, and it's a little difficult. So in that instance, that's why I asked you to cut these pieces of fabric just a little bit bigger to give you more of a cushion. We don't want to have to try to get exact, and then when we don't, we got to take it off and undo the stitching and start over. Okay, so let's get our cutting mat out because we are going to square up these blocks to be 4.5 inches square. So if I put it on the 8, I go to the 12.5, and that's exactly where the stitch lines come. So we want these to be a 4.5 inch square all the way around. We want square cornerstones. So I flip that. I'll do the left and the right first, and then I'll do the other two. So go ahead, I'm going to fast forward through this, and we're going to square up all these blocks to 4.5 inches. Okay, all right. So now that we've got these all squared up, they're so cute. All right, so let's go ahead and get all of the blocks out that we've done previously. Look at all this. Okay, so we have our 10-inch blocks. We have our 8-inch blocks. We have our 6-inch blocks. And we have our 4-inch blocks. Are those pretty? Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to put these together in different piles that are going to correspond to the borders that we're going to actually stitch together. So what we're going to do is basically we're going to be sewing these blocks together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's create 4 piles representing the 4 borders that we're going to be sewing together so we don't get this messed up. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is we're going to do the vertical borders. So we're going to start with a 10-inch, turn it upside down. That's the first one. The second one is a 10-inch, upside down. Third one is a 10-inch, upside down. And then there's an 8-inch. Okay, that is one vertical border. Put that aside. Okay, that's the first one. Now let's do the second one. On this side, it's another 10-inch, a second 10-inch, a third 10-inch, and an 8-inch. Okay, so we put that one aside. So now we're left with 10s, 6s, and the cornerstones. Okay, so this is vertical 1, this is vertical 2. So now the horizontal borders, we're going to start with a cornerstone, which will be over here, cornerstone. Then we're going to do a 10-inch. Then we're going to do a 6-inch. Then we're going to do a 10-inch. And then we're going to do a cornerstone. Boink. Okay, that pile, put that aside. So now this is all we have left. So the top row is the same. It's a cornerstone. It's a 10-inch. It's a 6-inch. It's a 10-inch. And it's a cornerstone. And you put that pile aside. So aren't these cool? So now these piles represent what you're going to stitch together. And all you're going to do is really easy. You're going to get pins out or your happy Clover Clips. Let's put those aside. We're going to grab this first one. And you're just going to attach them with a 1/4 inch seam. It doesn't matter how you put the designs. Okay? If you want to like really get close and say, okay, there's a star there and a starburst, but it ends in a firework and a starburst. So I want to turn this around. So I have the star, starburst, firework here, and then it starts again. You can do that. You can arrange these however you like in this, but basically this is the row you're going to do. You're going to flip it over and you're going to attach it just like we did with the sashings to the top of the block. You're going to do the same thing. Okay, so there we go. So this is the first two. Then you're going to sew these with your 1/4 inch foot. You want a 1/4 inch seam allowance on your sewing machine, and you're going to keep doing this all the way through. Okay, you're going to put this one to this one, and then you're going to put this one over here at the end to this one, and you're going to have your first border. Okay, so you're going to do that with each and every one of these piles, attaching them, sewing them with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so let's do a little fast forward montage and let's sew all these together. Aren't these amazing? Okay, now that we have all these sewn together, what I want you to do is I want you to go to your pressing station, flip them over, and I want you to press your seams open. Okay, so go ahead and press them open for all of these strips. And I'll meet you back here at the machine because you know what comes next after this. We are going to sew these strips onto the wall hanging. So I'll meet you back here. Okay, now that we have all of our borders sewn together and our seams pressed open, now's the moment of truth. Okay, you ready for this? All right, we are going to sew these borders onto our main quilt top. This is the last step. So what I want to make sure is that I've got the 10-inch block at the top and the 8-inch block at the bottom, and we're going to sew this on the left side of this wall hanging, left side. So pardon the view there. Oh, this is so pretty. Okay, so this is going to go on the left side. All right. So this is going to go on the left of the sashing. So I've got it laid down. You're going to do the same technique. We're going to flip it over and secure it all the way down with Clover Clips, and then we're going to sew it on with a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, I'm sorry you can't see the whole thing. I'll have to try to get a bigger setup for the next project. But hopefully you can see this is your sashing. This is the border that we're going to attach. We're going to line it up and flip it over, and then we're going to attach it with Clover Clips and sew it on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, I chose to put white thread in the top of the machine, so I figured white is a good generic because white is on the sashing all the way around. So I've put in white thread in the top, and we're going to stitch these two together. Let's go. So I'm at the end, I'm all attached, and I found that this is a little bit longer than the end. Don't worry about that. We're going to go ahead and sew this all on, and then when we come down to that part, if we have to cut that off, that's okay. It's not going to look bad. It'll go in the seam allowance, and it'll be one continuous flow of the quilting, so no one's really ever going to notice that if we have to cut that much off, we will. I'd rather have it too long than too short. If it was too short, then we would be in a pickle. We'd have to redo this in block. But the fact that we are too long, that's a good thing. Okay, so let's sew this on. That's a little long. That's okay. I'm not worried about that now because, like I said, I'd rather have it too long and lose some of this than have it too short and then have to redo a block. So we're okay. All right, so let's take a sneak peek, even though it's upside down. Ooh. I am in love. Look at that. Okay. Yes. Couple of straight threads there. We're good. Everything else looks great. Okay. It's cool. All right, so let's do the same thing for the right side of the wall hanging. So let's move this over. And we're going to grab the next vertical and make sure you've got the 10-inch at the top. 10, 10, 10, and the 8 at the bottom. So you know which direction it is. And it's getting kind of bulky, huh? Yeah. It, not just the size, but because of the batting that's in it, this actually gets rather bulky to move. So take your time when you're sewing it, because if you have to, like you saw me do, lift up and shift the top forward so it doesn't pull from the machine, take your time and do that because it is getting kind of heavy. All right. So this is the border. We want to flip it over to this side and attach. Okay, let's take a sneak peek. Ooh, all right. Take it down. There's a thread there we can take out carefully. All right. Okay, we're good on the top. Everything looks good. Everything looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over to the big table and I'm going to line this up with my ruler and I'm going to trim this exactly level with the bottom. Can you see this? Okay, so this extra part here, this is perfectly straight. So line your ruler up to here and trim off this excess piece right there and the excess piece right there. Then we can come back and sew on the top and the bottom. Isn't this exciting? Oh, man. Makes me want to start another one. Okay. All right, see, I cut this off, leveled it off, and you really can't even tell that the design disappears into the edge. It's going to be perfect. Okay, did that on both sides. Now I'm going to stitch the top stripe on first. Okay, and this one I want to do a little bit differently. I want to try to piece this seam. You can't see. There we go. Is that better? That's much better. I want to try to piece this seam and level it with this seam. So what I want to try to do is get that blue block to start and end with the white one so it has a clean look. Okay, I'm going to do that for both sides. So I've chosen the direction that I want the top to go. You know, this one I chose firework on the bottom and little starburst on top. And I kind of did that way consistently across. This is the one I want face up. So now when I flip this over, I'm going to put a clover clip. I'm going to line up this seam with that seam. So we're going to flip it over. This is just like regular quilting. I pressed open the seam. There we go. And now I'm going to put a clover clip right on that seam. Okay. Then I can line the rest up all the way across and put one on the end. Okay. Now I want to stop and I don't want to continue on. I want to go over to the other side and I want to do the exact same thing. Okay. So I've got this seam nestled up against that seam. put that there, line the rest of this up, and line the rest of that up. Okay, so I've got those two seams nested in. Now, if there's any overage or fluffage or something that's here, which there isn't, but if there was, there's a teeny weeny bit, but not much, then I can get those to fit together this way, but I want this seam and this seam to line up. So then I'm going to just keep clipping all the way down. All the way down. Okay, and because I really want these cornerstones to be positioned in the right spot, I'm going to sew this one a little bit differently. Keep attaching. Okay, when I get done attaching, almost out of Clover Clips, there we go. All right, I'm going to start with this end, and I'm going to sew from here, just past here. I'm going to stop, then I'm going to come down and do this end from here to just past here and stop. The reason is, if you notice that when you sew a border on, it will tend to shift its way down, and you may end up being a 1/4 inch or so or more off when you get down to this point. But because this has to be exactly where this is, and this one has to be exactly where it is, I don't want these two to shift. So I'm going to secure them in place first. Then I'll come back and I'll stitch in here. And if there's any play or overage, I can worm it in small segments within this space, so it will absorb it and you'll never see it. But then in that way, those two cornerstones are not going to move. So that's how we're going to sew it together. Okay, let's do it. And I am going to leave white thread in the machine. I think that will be just fine. Here we go. Again, I'm only going to go about this far and stop. Okay, I'm at the seam. And I may have to raise my foot a little bit because it's kind of thick going through there. Go real slow. Okay, now I'm going to just back stitch and secure it and stop. Okay. Now, carefully, I'm going to take a little sneak peek and just make sure, yep, my seam looks good. Okay, now we're going to go over to this side. And we get to do this one upside down. It's like a wrestling job, right? Right. Okay, going to do the same thing on this side. And back stitch. And sew. Okay. Okay, I'm at the seam. So I want to lay this down. You have to lift the foot just a little bit to get it over that bulk. And backstitch. Okay. All right, let's take a sneak peek. Let's see. Did we do it? Did we do it? You know, that's really close. I'm going to go with that. It's just a smidgy off, but I'm going with it. It is good enough from my books. So we are going to town. So now we can stitch the rest of this together with no worries. Now, if there's any play, we're just going to make sure we keep that section kind of taut, kind of straight, and sew it up. There's a teeny bit, but it will absorb itself as we go along. Okay, so let's fast forward and sew this baby up. Okay, moment of truth. Moment of truth. Did we do it? Got some threads to cut, not a problem. Okay, that is real close. I'm going to take that as a win, as a win, as a win. Okay, I am happy with that. Okay, guys, realize we have one more to do. Now we're going to do the bottom. You can do this, okay? So let's flip it over. We're so close. We're going to do the exact same technique as we did on the top with the cornerstones, okay? So knowing that this is the bottom, fix which direction you like the border to go, and then flip it. Same technique. Okay, let's fast forward through it and get this baby on. Okay, let's check this out. That was hard. My sewing machine was moving at the same time. Ooh, I got a little boo-boo. That's okay. I can fix that. And let's see what else we got. This thread there. The rest looks good. Okay. The rest looks good. I'll take it. This little boo-boo, it's way down here. This is like a little thread came through. So I'm just going to undo right there and redo it. That's not a problem. That's actually where I stopped from doing the block. So this thread came up the top. So actually, yeah, the rest of it's all right. Okay. All right, so let me just tack this down again right at that spot. And that should be good. Okay, let's check it out. Yep, we're good. Awesome! What do you guys think? That is amazing. All right, so I'm not going to show you this on this table because you can't see it all. I'm going to go hang this up so we can do the big reveal. Okay? And here it is. Isn't this amazing? Look what you guys just finished. I am in love with this project. This turned out so pretty. I love the borders, the sashing, the blocks, the 3 dimensions, the rhinestones. Everything is amazing. I am so proud of you. Congratulations. You did it. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me and coming along for this adventure. Here's my email address. I would love to see pictures of your completed projects. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a note. Also leave some comments down below in this video as well, so YouTube can see whether you like the video or not. Again, congratulations. This is beautiful. You did awesome. And I hope that you join me again on Jolly Molly TV for my next adventure, which is going to be Kimberbell's Red, White, and Bloom project. So again, you guys did awesome. I am so happy and proud of all of you for doing this project. So please stay tuned. Like this video if you like it, and make sure you subscribe to my channel and click on the bell notification so you're notified every time I upload a video. So I'll see you soon here on Jolly Molly TV. Have a great day. Bye-bye.